Today I'm going to tell you about 3 freshmen who are breaking out in a big way in 2018 for the Sooners, and all that's coming up after the bumper.
What do you mean you don't subscribe to my son's YouTube channel?
Mama, no!
Just snap the damn ball, RJ.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always OU related, college football related, sports related. We have a good time. But first, check it out. So, I didn't know that this hat was going to be the big hit that it was on Twitter and in the comments of the YouTube channel and whatnot. It says, just here for Baker. I mean, maybe you can see that, maybe you can't. Point is, I made shirts that said it because folks were saying, yo, man, I need one of those. Because there's a lot of folks who are Sooner fans who want to support Baker Mayfield in Cleveland, but also can't really get it up for that orange color. So here's the shirt that I made. It is available on Teespring. You can check the description below or in the comments below to a link to where you can purchase one. I got one. It's coming. I'll wear it on the show when I get it. For now, we're just going to go with my Rick Vaughn t-shirt. And while I'm plugging things, I got this book coming out. It's called Let It Bang. I'd appreciate it if you go pre-order it wherever it is that you pre-order books. It's a big deal. It's getting reviews all over the place. I'm going to be on Code Switch, PBS, and I'm on Pour. I also got this big thing coming out in New York Post and this other big thing coming out on LitHub. And I'm doing Canadian radio and I'm doing the Miami Book Fair. And I'm sure that I forgot something else. So the first thing that I want to talk about was the NBA. If I may for a second. And by NBA, I mean the Thunder. Because yes, I know that some folks have wanted me to start talking more about the Thunder in particular. The Thunder are a big deal for me. They're a big deal for most folks who follow OU. And it's one of those things that we can kind of agree on with Oklahoma State fans who I will continue to dunk on, period. And by way of segue, I'm going to read you something that I read and see who you think they're talking about. The superb passing skills combined with extraordinary speed and ball handling abilities make him a nightmare for defenses. Now, do you think that was Kyler Murray or Russ Westbrook? Turns out it was a Waco Trib article about Kyler Murray, but I think that also speaks to the kind of dynamic quarterback Kyler Murray is, but also it's kind of cool segue into Russ Westbrook, who is the best player on the Oklahoma City Thunder. You can make an argument that he's one of the best players in the league, maybe top 3 in the league behind Steph Curry, LeBron James.
Fight me.
But the biggest story for me heading into the preseason for the Oklahoma City Thunder is Dennis Schroder. Dennis Schroder is the person OKC wanted Melo to be, Reggie Jackson tried to be, and James Harden was. He's a scoring point guard coming off the bench for the Thunder. And I think he can do this role because he's been a guy who's come off the bench before when he got to Atlanta. Then he got in the starting lineup, and he's averaged 20 points a game, give or take, over the last 4 seasons. And he's used to being a high usage point guard, which is what Russ Westbrook is. Honestly, the Thunder look like absolute garbage when Russ Westbrook's not on the floor. And it's going to be really interesting to see if Dennis Schroder can fall in line, because I got suspicions about the guy and his attitude and just how well he's going to mesh with that locker room culture, because Atlanta essentially gave him up for nothing. And all he was doing was scoring for them and getting a lot of the ball for them. But in Oklahoma City, he could be in a position to thrive because, again, the offense requires a high usage point guard. And when that high usage point guard was not on the floor, they looked lost. To say nothing of who that 5th man on the floor is going to be when you run Russ, PG, Roberson, and Adams. That 5th guy on the floor better be Shane Battier in the corner knocking down 3-pointers, because that's going to be his job. You're going to have all kinds of penetration, all kinds of play in the paint. That guy needs to be standing in the corner knocking down trays. Maybe it's Patrick Patterson. Maybe it's Jeremy Grant. I don't care who it is as long as they can shoot 40% from 3. Next thing I want to talk about is the Rough Rider uniforms. Lincoln Riley basically grinned and said maybe we'll wear them against Baylor, and then folks on Twitter and on the channel freaked out because nobody outside of the folks in that locker room liked the Rough Rider uniforms. If you don't follow Sooner Tracker on Twitter, you should do it. He's done a really great job breaking this down in some Medium articles. And he does a good job on Twitter of keeping us up to date on what the uniform combos are, what's significant about them, and why you should care. But from a practical standpoint, the Rough Rider uniforms debuted in 2014, and they're not as cursed as people want to say they are. Look, Oklahoma won that 2014 game against West Virginia when they wore the Rough Rider uniforms 45-33. And those were in the reds, the ones that people hate the most. And then in that same year, 2014, OU took a bad loss to Baylor in the whites, 48-14. The next year, they wore the Rough Rider uniforms again against West Virginia. They got a W in the reds, 44-24. 2016, they wore the Reds at Kansas State, got a 38-17 win. Last year, they wore them to Baylor, snuck out of there with a 49-41 win. This year, we don't know exactly what the uniform combination is going to be, but safe to say, Oklahoma is going to reprise the Rough Rider uniforms this year at home. I'm not a big fan of the Rough Rider uniforms just because I don't like the way they look. I'm not feeling the wood grain. And while they got the dreaded armpit talon or whatever that was gone, I still just don't like the uniforms. I like the traditional reds. I like the traditional whites. I haven't seen a good alternate uniform combination for Oklahoma, so I don't endorse them. But that's what we're going to have. You can do with it what you want, but you should know they're not nearly as cursed as people want to make them out to be. They're just a uniform. An ugly uniform, but a uniform. Now, as to the guys who are doing the most for Oklahoma as true freshmen, you start with Brendan Bookie Radley-Hiles. I understand the kid is still growing, and he's definitely made some mistakes, including some missed tackles, but he's played not just every game, but a significant role in every game. And to hear Lincoln Riley talk about him at length, you're seeing a guy want to make plays and want to make him in the big way. And Lincoln was saying, look, they're going to come for him because he's a big play kind of player, but they're having a hard time just letting him let the game come to him, which I understand. You're a true freshman. You're highly touted. You want to live up to your name. You want folks to feel vindicated for the faith that they have in you. And I think it's going to come for Bookie. But I'm really encouraged for what I see from him coming from a true freshman. I mean, look, at the nickelback position, which is new to Mike Stoops' scheme, by the way, essentially playing a safety role, you're hung out to dry in a lot of cases. And against this Baylor defense, he's going to have to step up. He's going to have to play a big role against some wide receivers that can catch the ball and a quarterback that can put it on him. I think he could have a big game this week. But even if he didn't, he's the best freshman Oklahoma has. And that's saying a lot, particularly because there are 3 or 4 other cats that can absolutely play, but you're seeing the versatility of Bookie. He not only can play safety for you, if you want him to move out to play corner, he could do that, but we saw him returning kicks against Army when both Marcellus Sutton and Trey Brown couldn't go for injury-related reasons. I think the longer that Bookie stays at Oklahoma, the better the secondary will get, the better he'll get in the secondary, and he could be a great cover safety, a great center fielder, the likes of which Oklahoma hasn't had for quite some time. Because it's not often that you see essentially a strong safety be your best freshman tackler. He's got 19 on the season, and he should have more because of missed tackles. But you'd be wrong to think that he's not living up to his billing as a 5-star defensive back. Next guy we got to talk about is Ronnie Perkins, man. Ronnie Perkins on that defensive line at the defensive end position has looked good to me. I know a lot of folks were dinging him for the Army game, but the Army game apparently for everybody, but most of us who watched the game, we're being told it's an anomaly. We're being told that it's not like what they do, which I'll get to later on in the week. But Ronnie Perkins has stepped up. He's done the job he's been asked to do, especially as a true freshman. That's a big deal, man. He's showing what can happen if you're an early enrollee, you get in Bennie Wiley's weight room, and you give everything you got during preseason. And we already knew that he had the talent because with that size and that motor, you just kind of want to see the guy go after people. And when he gets an opportunity to do that, he does. He's got 9 tackles, including 2 for loss and a sack. I think Ronnie Perkins is cementing himself not just on that defensive line, but as a linchpin in the years to come for that defensive line. And the last guy we got to talk about is running back TJ Pledger. This is a lot of folks' favorite offensive freshman. There's a lot of folks that wanted to see him get more snaps, especially after Rodney Anderson had his season-ending knee injury. And I understand that, but I'm also a big fan of Trey Sermon and a big fan of Marcellus Sutton. But it's speaking volumes that TJ Pledger has essentially jumped Kennedy Brooks on the depth chart. He's got 15 carries for 84 yards. He was the only other tailback that you saw in the Army game. And like the other 2 guys before him, he's played 4 games. And those guys ain't gonna redshirt this year. Not at all. Not even a little bit. So I think as we have those redshirt conversations, it's nice to be able to rule out some of the true freshmen that we thought could contribute right away, like these U.S. Army All-Americans. And there are plenty of other guys who are getting lots of playing time and guys that I think we'll see later on in the year and see quite a bit of, like Jalen Robinson, like Deshaun White, like Drake Stoops. So keep your eye on that as we move forward. All right, that's it for me. Deuces.